my name is Namita, and I am a senior majoring in computer science or data science, switched recently. And my mentor is Nicole Brewer, who is a PhD student in computational history and philosophy of science. And we work together under Digital Innovation Group Lab here at ASU, which is a interdisciplinary digital humanities lab. But more importantly, who are you? So, has anyone used Menti before? This is your opportunity to try it. Menti is a great way to get polls from people, which is what I'll be doing. So I think, like all things, hopefully I think I can just present. Are you guys able to join? Yes? Okay, cool. Yes. Oh, cool. There's a thumbs up. Sweet. Awesome. Anyone need any more time? Okay, yeah, that should be fine. I think when I present the next slide. All right. Now are you able to interact with it? Cool. So what is your background? Okay, awesome. Very happy on the business professional. So that I guess parlays into my next question. What type of data do you guys work with? These are examples. Awesome. Hmm. So I'm actually kind of surprised it's around student information. Are you guys part of like Canvas or learning management systems if you're in business or okay, awesome. Cool. Uh oh, this was supposed to say how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Good. Awesome. Just gauging everyone's energy levels. So, a lot of my presentation today is going to be around Jupyter notebooks. Have you guys used Jupyter? Oh, sweet. Okay, no one has not ever used Jupyter notebooks. That is a great sign. All right. That is the end of the Menti. Thank you for letting me get to know more about you. So, this is the agenda for today. Minus the extra 5 minutes with technical difficulties, I'll speed run through a lot of this, but we're gonna go start with like who, what, why, answer the basic questions about what this demo is. And the second part is gonna be me actually showing you a couple use case scenarios and live in action. The third part is gonna be deployment. And then the fourth is just benefits and limitations recap. So what, who, why, how? What is the background of this? So what is this? So let's talk about dynamic dashboards. What does that even mean? How many of you guys have used dashboards in general? Okay, how many of you use dashboards in Jupyter Notebook? No one. Did you guys know that this was possible even? Yeah, some? Okay. So dashboards are to help people gain insights from data or to perform a computational task. In Jupyter Notebook specifically, it's very customizable. So like widgets, with sliders, and they have additional drop downs and check boxes that help users become interactive with the actual web app. And of course, the benefit being like real-time interactivity, everything is dynamic. So who is this for? So a large part of my audience today is business enterprises, but a lot of researchers mainly use it for computational needs for social sciences and interdisciplinary fields. So the benefit of Jupyter Notebooks being that it's kind of used as a medium tool between researchers who are kind of in the sciences, the history and other domains, and the software engineers who are very savvy with tech, but a lot of times there's kind of a disconnect between these two groups because the researchers don't really know how to use VS Code or aren't super familiar with like programs that are inherent to VS Code. So they're really used to Jupyter Notebooks and the simplicity of that, which kind of serves as a good medium for both those groups. So that's why we land on Jupyter Notebooks for both researchers and software engineers who want to work with researchers and still, again, past that point of when software engineers leave their lab, the researchers still need to be able to update it and maintain it. So they're able to do that with an environment they're already familiar with. Business enterprises. So you'd be surprised, but companies actually love partaking in open source platforms for their own growth too. The more, the better. OpenAI is a great example of that, but I'll get into an example a little bit later. Bloomberg is actually invested in IPy Widgets specifically, which is the tool I'm going to be talking about on Jupyter Notebooks. And also for geeks, people who want to like just do their own personal projects and are very into coding can quickly put something together on this platform. So this was a survey in, I think, 2021 based on, it was on Stack Overflow, and they asked their users which IDE do they use the most. 12.8% of respondents from Stack Overflow said they use Jupyter Notebooks. I, as a student, haven't really ever used Jupyter Notebooks until I entered research as a software engineer, and also maybe in my data science classes, but beyond that, we're very, as a CS student, you're really trained in VS Code. So I was kind of surprised to see that Jupyter Notebook is as high as it is, just because I thought it was a little bit more outdated, but it's not. So it's still pretty relevant. But why? So why should we use Jupyter compared to our sophisticated counterparts next door? We have Microsoft and Tableau and Google all in this conference. But why Jupyter? So again, the code and data is all in one space, which arguably can be said for other platforms too. But the UI of the Jupyter interface platform inherently makes it convenient that the code and data is all in one place. There's more computational flexibility to do what you want because you are the person in charge of the code. So you know exactly what's happening step by step, as opposed to like Tableau, you might throw a data set in and you might ask them to click on a widget or click on a checkbox to like, I don't know, filter something out for me, but you don't actually get to see the step-by-step, like the literate programming is what it's called. So the fact that you are able to see that and you are in control of that gives you a lot of computational flexibility to however you want to do with the data. And it's free and open source. Sometimes other services are not. And as students, Jupyter Notebook is very friendly, cost friendly. So I'll get into more of like the why for research. I've already kind of mentioned this, but again, familiarity. Researchers want to be able to already access this in a space that they're already familiar with. It's free and open source. So they want to actually be able to display their work in an accessible and interactive format without having to spend any money. The fact that a lot of this code that they publish too can be posted on GitHub, and that can be accessible for other people. Again, also in terms of like research, a lot of research papers have methodology section, and a lot of times that can be explained by a lot of your code, which is not It's easier to do again when you have that literate step-by-step computational notebook. And it's reproducible, which is probably the most important thing. They want their work to be reproducible for others, and also makes it easier for them to convert this into research papers, especially when you can build a community around it. So yeah, research edition. Enterprise edition, which is more towards you guys. So it's mainly for, again, increasing the engagement with the people, and also like the more the merrier, so the more people that have and are able to contribute to that, the more findings can be made, the more people can get customizable with like the data sets that large platforms are providing. So popular tools, so there's a lot of open source culture between popular companies like Netflix, Bloomberg, and PayPal. And according to Netflix, beyond basic dashboarding, Jupyter technologies can be used in workflow engines and support scalable infrastructure for diverse employee user bases. And again, because it's easy to integrate with these tool preferences, a lot of analytics engineers, data engineers, and data scientists use it. But how? So I've mentioned Jupyter a lot. So it's usually Jupyter and Python, which makes it, a lot of people are familiar with Python, and Jupyter again provides you that like step-by-step format, which makes it easier to go back and debug as opposed to VS Code when you have a whole chunk of code. So let's actually take a look at a few use cases. So use case scenario 1, Sally. Sally is a researcher at ASU. She's trying to find the relationship between a network of authors and their publications for her research. So imagine you have a bunch of publications, and these publications have maybe 3 or 4 authors for each publication. You have maybe 6,000 of these publications, but you want to see which publications are authors sharing. So like publication A is listed in this publication, and they might be listed in this publication. So you draw like a network edge between these two groups and try to establish some sort of network. So that's what she's trying to identify. She has a large data set, and she's working with her mentor, and that data set was given to her in a typical CSV file. So what does she do? She creates a web app. One, because she wants to eventually present this at a new conference, and she wants to show her steps. So she initially creates a whole database collection with her web app. And what she does here in the back end, what's actually happening is that because the listed authors are not in a consistent format throughout the publications, for example, if you have like listed in your authors for one publication as F. Hernandez, but another publication, it might be Fernando Hernandez. Like how you link those two together, if you even want to link those two authors together as the same author, she does all that data pre-processing in Jupyter Notebooks in the back end, and is able to come out with a solid database that actually connects those two and changes the parameters of how she's actually connecting those authors together, and is able to create a data set that's usable and consistent. So now she actually creates the graph using a few libraries that are part of IPyWidgets, one of which is IPyCytoscape. So IPyCytoscape inherently allows you to create a network of nodes and edges that you identify. So in this case, these are all different authors who are getting connected together. And so if you look at one node has like 5 or 6 publications that have been identified. And in this, she has also programmed it in a way so that it collects their attributes. So like if an email is listed, because usually only when you're given like in a citation, the primary author's email might be listed, but they might not be the primary author in multiple publications. But if it is listed somewhere, she programmed it in a way so that it collects that and assigns that to their like biography, bio data. She again like programmed it in a way so that if it's R, it tries to find the full name and the last name to make it to create like a full profile data of this author. And now she wants to actually share it. Obviously, she has this web app publicly available on GitHub for people, but she wants to, if her professor asks or PI asks for a quick overview of maybe just the graph, he doesn't want to see all the extra noise. Sally is able to quickly export that through an IPy widget and able to download it as any of these options. So, quick summary of Sally's. So the widgets she used specifically are IPy Cytoscape, IPy Data Grid, which is the actual clean data format you saw as opposed to a typical data frame in pandas. And then she was able to display the dropdowns and actually export her data all from this web app. So how does she actually benefit from making a dashboard on Jupyter? Well, she was able to maintain her workflow. She inherited a data set that was already given to her by her mentor. And maybe her mentor also had an existing Jupyter notebook that he was just doing exploratory data analysis work on. And now that it's finished, she can actually export it and include a graph in her research paper. Use case scenario 2. So Sal is a very young boy. He's a very gifted student who's partaking in this AI hackathon. Sal wants to create a chatbot that is specific to educational usage. So he's going to create a standalone web app integrating ChatGPT's API key. So Sal creates this web app, and it has an upload function for the educator to actually upload their files on their local computer. And this is all done through IPy Widgets framework. Now, in his web app, Sal wants to actually have it so that the users are interacting with an active chatbot. So because this is dynamic dashboards, it's gonna be integrated with ChatGPT's API key because he, again, had the flexibility to program it that way so that he could include that in his web app and also train the model so that it served his specific purpose. And Sal also has other guidelines. So if he wants the chatbot not to respond with an explicit answer, maybe he wants the chatbot to give the student a step-by-step without actually giving them the answer, or maybe he wants the chatbot to explain to the student as a metaphor of what their question is asking for. There's checkboxes that are on the back end connected to a method on how the chatbot is responding to the students entirely. So the UI here is all IPy widgets, but again, Jupyter Notebooks allows you the flexibility of whatever you're clicking on is also directly correlated with an action or function that is being performed. So here he used a couple widgets. IPyViewtify itself is like IPy widgets, but it's a more beautiful version of widgets. IPyViewtify is actually a Google widget that they created because the original IPy widgets was kind of clunky and they didn't like it. So instead of IPy widgets, if you were to call a checkbox on IPy widgets, it would be a kind of like typical 1980s style, whereas IPyViewtify makes it nice with like cushion and rounded edges and stuff like that. So IPyViewtify carries a lot of the same functionality as IPy widgets, excluding a few, but it just makes the UI more friendly. And there's functional checkboxes, like I mentioned. And how did Sal actually benefit from creating this dashboard? So because he was participating in this hackathon and the hackathon wanted to see the students' entire work and their thought development process throughout as part of their submission, Sal was able to use Jupyter Notebooks to create multiple notebooks for each function or for each view or whatever he was doing. And he was able to actually integrate the API key he was provided within his code and able to modify upon that. And he was also able to make other widgets perform functional tasks. So like the upload feature or the chat box, he was able to have proper user interaction with it and have it actually mean something in the backend. Use case scenario 3, Bloomberg. So I'm not super familiar with this, but Bloomberg actually developed BQ plot and IPy data grid widgets. So you can see some of these widgets are actually very commonly and popularly used today, but they were kind of a couple of their employees were kind of the founders of that and also funded this process. But yeah, you can see the interactivity of it all, and it's very lovely. So again, another benefit of widgets is the fact that it's UI friendly. And these are some other cool dashboards that can be created. You can get really creative with it because it's all customizable. So you can't see super well, but it can be used for biology, for economics, psychology, aeronautics, more. And it could also be used for both like data-driven tasks where you're trying to analyze insights on data, or if you just want to create your own standalone computational web app without analyzing any data. So like if you wanted to create a calculator or if you wanted to create your own chatbot, you're not necessarily analyzing any data in that sense. You're just creating a standalone web app for your own purposes that you're programming entirely. This is some more. This is a better video of what IPy Cytoscape actually is, but it is like an interactive network graph. And the details you're seeing is also programmable, just because when you initially list IPy Cytoscape, it's actually static. With programming, additional programming, you can make it interactive. So it's not actually inherently like interactive beyond clicking. And then this is probably one of my favorites. I haven't worked on this one, but it is available out there if you ever want to use it. And again, these fields are all customizable depending on the use case. So how do we actually deploy this? No, yes. Mm-hmm. I think it would probably be something similar, but I don't know. I think this is a very like Jupyter notebook specific widget. I think there's just so many things that exist that are interactive that like for the purposes of uploading it to a website, they probably wouldn't want to use something that is like low level. They want to use something that's more popular. So yeah, now that we've actually created all this web app, how do we actually deploy it and get people to see it? So obviously you can push it to GitHub, but not everyone knows what GitHub is, how to use it. GitHub is, for those who don't know, a platform where like people upload all their code, and it's just a bunch of people's codes with different folders. But to actually use their program, they would have to know how to use it, know how to clone it, and actually reproduce it on their laptop locally. But not everyone knows how to do that. So what do we use? So there's two things we use to make this accessible. The first part is within the notebook itself, and it's called Voila. So Voila stands for exactly how it sounds. It strips away the actual code cells that leave behind only the browser components and the UI left. So say somebody wants to just like use the web app, but they don't want anything to do with the code. Maybe the PI, their boss, like the researcher's boss, only wants to be able to interact with their data and use it for their research purposes. They don't care about the code. So they don't want to see all this junk and have to like navigate through all that code to produce their output. They just want to see the standalone. And that's what Voila does. But Voila is only hosted locally. So you would still have to have your entire code downloaded on your laptop, and you would still have to run the codes to still produce that standalone web app. So to solve that, to make it more cloud-based, we use it in correlation, in synchronization with Binder. So Binder is one of those, it has one of those tags that are available in like GitHub README repositories. So you essentially click on the link, which is like launch Binder, and it starts launching like a virtual machine. So it looks like you've actually opened these notebooks. And because you programmed it in a way so that only this, like the web app portion is showing, when you launch Binder, you technically have access still to all the code, but there then like whoever the user is can immediately go to the Voila section and launch Voila, and it would look like a standalone web app. So yeah, Binder is still transferring all your code there, but because you have Voila already ready, they don't have to do anything and they can just open the Voila file. So to conclude, some benefits and limitations. So scientists might have already existing exploratory notebooks. So what does this mean? Sometimes, like if you've seen, how many of you have used Jupyter Lab? Okay, so if you have multiple notebooks, then scientists are doing multiple things on those, and maybe they want to transfer all that over to their students. So the students inherit all these notebooks, and are like, again, the concept of literate programming is there, and they can create a new structure right under that with everything contained in a consolidated space. It's easy for users to maintain, again, because Jupyter Notebook is more used as a medium platform between all these groups. It's maintained beyond the lifespan of the software engineer's time in the lab. And then these third-party widgets, there's a bunch of them out there. There's actually, there's a really good website that has like all IPy widgets contained. I think it might be this one. Yeah, they have like BQplot. There's a bunch of libraries out there that have a specific use case. So depending on that, you have a lot of flexibility to do what you want with it. For limitation, there's little stylistic control. So you're limited to the bounds of that widget. But more importantly, a lot of those widgets for styling require CSS knowledge. So that's kind of just like scripting and design style for like programming that can be kind of annoying. And then if you have multiple functions in the backend, it also requires object-oriented programming expertise. And then a lot of the data visualization libraries are also not always interactive. So you have to specifically go out of your way to program them to make them interactive for your users. All right, any questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. So are you asking what your like file type? It's customizable. So it could be PDF, it could be like CSV that you're no, but like if you're to export it, it would still like download to your computer as a PDF. Yeah. So you're asking like if it can be exported. It is possible. I don't know which file specifically. Usually for export, it's more so for static use cases. So like if they want to copy paste it into a paper, if they wanted to interact with it, it would usually have to be that web app that can be standalone uh as dynamic. Yeah. All right, that concludes this session. I hope you gain something from this. It's a little more heavily directed towards researchers than business. But I'm curious to know what do you guys use for your dashboards, or what platforms do you guys typically use? Like Tableau? Tableau, you said? Nice. Have you had any like learning curve with that, or was it pretty intuitive? Mm-hmm. Mm. Are you in control? Yeah. Are you in control of like, I don't know how to put this, but like the magnitude of the filters? So like if you wanted to modify those filters, do you have like control over that, or okay. What is your background? Is it like educational or educational business or oh okay. Mm, yeah. Yeah, I think for like it is really savvy for people who like already know programming and want to stay in that space. But yeah, it's hard to compete with Tableau and Alteryx. Yeah, true. Um, yeah, that concludes this presentation.